So a big welcome everyone to our second full panel where we have 3 talks and then there'll be a chance for questions at the end. So do please either raise your hand or put your questions into the chat. I'm going to give short introductions before each of the talks and then we'll have all of the questions at the end. So first of all, I'm delighted to introduce Ana Matilde Sousa, who holds a PhD in painting from the Faculty of Fine Arts of Lisbon and works as a junior researcher and teacher. So Anna, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. After the amazing first panels, I want to begin by thanking for the opportunity to present this and also for the introduction. The inspiration for the title of this talk actually comes from a bit of an unexpected source, which is the TV show Prison Break that was quite popular back in the 90s. And in Prison Break, the protagonist has this words "cute poison" tattooed on his arm and features this design of wonky urn pouring some kind of corrosive substance over a manhole cover. And at first glance, the words "cute poison" might seem innocuous or even quite silly, but actually this serve as a clever mnemonic for copper sulfate and phosphoric acid, which are 2 of the ingredients which are needed for the escape plan. And this got me thinking about how this blend of toxic imagery with cuteness often acts not as a deterrent, but as a conduit for toxicity, and can thus fall into this broader category of cute aggression. And also what strategies does this cute poison might employ in order to operate. And I will be addressing these points in the conclusion after discussing some examples. I'll skip this for time. And so just to introduce this question, cuteness, I think, has a kind of a troubling environmental track record, largely due to its ties to plastic fantastic culture. For instance, studies highlight the harmful impacts of microplastics in glitter, for instance, and also trends like bubble tea have faced harsh criticism for their use of single-use plastics. Also, for instance, the consumption of online cat videos has been linked to climate change due to its massive carbon footprint, and even well-intentioned uses of cuteness for environmental purposes seem to backfire. For instance, plush toys used for extinction awareness often prioritize these dollable, charismatic, as we've heard, animals and neglect less attractive species, and thus they might affect conservation. And another example from the UK is how, for instance, the perceived cuteness and nativeness of red squirrels has often been used as a discourse to justify eliminating the gray, less cute and alien invasive counterparts. Japan, on the other hand, is the homeland of kawaii and the mascot culture, as we know. And so here, the cute aesthetics often span from this more refined commercial mascots of companies like Sanrio to even widespread phenomenon like Yurukiara, which are local mascots designed to promote tourism, and they usually have this more handmade and almost deliberately unsophisticated look. And so with this overwhelming presence of cute aesthetics and a broad acceptance in Japanese society, it is perhaps unsurprising that cuteness is often leveraged as a tactic to sanitize controversial activities, or at the very least to present them in a more approachable, friendly way. And this is well illustrated by the various numerous cute mascots that have been created over the years by Japanese governmental agencies to cutify the country's nuclear industrial complex. And these characters are usually named with nuclear terms or words, and then are given endearing Japanese suffixes such as chan or kun. On screen, you can see an example of one of these nuclear mascots called Uran-chan, and she was created by a public relations agency to promote nuclear power. And specifically, this that you can see is an old face-in-hole cutout of Uran-chan, which is one of the many artifacts on display in the Memorial Museum in Fukushima. And here you can also see Uran-chan as featured in Atom Fukushima, which was a PR magazine for promoting nuclear energy. And of course, this all predates the nuclear Fukushima disaster. And coincidentally, Uran-chan is also the name of the younger sister of Mighty Atom, which is more known to English audiences as Astro Boy, from Osamu Tezuka's very popular manga anime series from the 1960s, also related to nuclear power. There are numerous other nuclear mascots besides Uran-chan. For those interested, let me direct you to Deborah Ochi's excellent 2022 paper on this topic. And a notable example is Pluto-kun, which was created in 1991 for what later became the Japan Atomic Energy Agency. And these are screen grabs from an official cartoon titled Pluto-kun, Our Reliable Friend, in which Pluto-kun offers a young boy a glass of liquid plutonium, and then the boy drinks it and he goes, "Oh, I feel so refreshed." Particularly interesting in this nuclear mascot optics is the case of Tritium-chan, which is a newer mascot that captured a lot of media attention, both in Japan and also in the West in 2021. And as noted by Ochi, Tritium-chan is possibly the Japanese mascot with the briefest official lifespan ever. And so this character was created to explain the release of treated wastewaters from Fukushima, and its design is based on a tritium atom. So the water is treated, but before the discharge, of course, but it will still contain tritium, which is a radioactive hydrogen isotope. And so they created this character, but Tritium-chan was very swiftly discontinued after just 10 days due to a major public backlash in Japan with critics and also very upset and obviously traumatized locals, arguing that employing a cute character to relay this kind of serious information undermines risk communication and trivializes the gravity of the issue. And as a result, the mascot was removed from the informational materials and was substituted with the less controversial T letter. Ochi also highlights another interesting category, which are the unofficial nuclear characters, so not made by government agencies. An example is Genpatsu-kun, or Nuclear Boy. And Genpatsu-kun was used in informational videos on YouTube, such as you can see an excerpt on the screen, during the Fukushima disaster to explain it to children in simple terms. And for instance, in this video, they compare the reactor meltdown to a tummy ache and also an unfortunate bout of diarrhea by poor Genpatsu-kun. And it's curious to note that while the official mascots like Uran-chan and Tritium-chan have a more polished Sanrio-like appearance, unofficial characters like Genpatsu-kun align more with the familiar style of Yuru Kiara, even though Genpatsu-kun was actually created by a professional designer. And it's not just these nuclear mascots or characters that showcase the kawaiification of toxicity, but as this phenomenon also appears in other contexts outside Japanese mascot culture. And a notable example is Ebola-chan, a character created during the Ebola pandemic in 2014. She is depicted as a nurse with pink pigtails whose hands are shaped like the Ebola virus, and she has bat wings. And Ebola-chan became this big internet meme with images circulating in forums like 4chan that urge users to post an image saying, "I love you, Ebola-chan," to avoid contracting the disease. And of course, this was the lore around the character. And initially, this started as a reasonably harmless, if dark joke, but Ebola-chan eventually did develop some markedly right-wing racist undertones. And so we can say that Ebola-chan herself, the character, also fell victim to the toxicity of internet troll culture. And we have already spoken about COVID today, and unsurprisingly, during the coronavirus pandemic, the character Corona-chan emerged as a personified version of the virus. She's often shown wearing a Chinese traditional costume, suggesting her geographical origin, and then the bat wings and the virus-shaped hair accessories. She's shown holding a Corona beer, and sometimes she is also shown wearing a mask. And here you can see the characters of Ebola-chan and Corona-chan alongside representations of other diseases. And I want to stress that this approach of transforming, well, basically everything and anything under the sun into a cute anime girl is borrowed from Japanese fan culture, and especially a humorous form of anthropomorphization called moe-gijinka. However, when moe-gijinka is applied to diseases, especially such deadly diseases, it kind of delves squarely into the realm of Black humor. And my final examples highlight instances where cute poison has had real-world consequences, and specifically two incidents with Pikachu and other friendly Pokemon. The first one is the Pokemon Shock from 1997, in which a scene in which Pikachu flashes his electric attacks triggered seizures in over 600 Japanese viewers, led to many children being hospitalized, and the suspension of the anime broadcast in Japan, with also new laws coming along to regulate this kind of visual effects in animation. And the second example is the discovery of Pokemon inside the Fukushima exclusion zone and in Chernobyl during the height of the Pokemon Go craze in 2016. And here the fear was that these unsuspecting children and teenagers would be lured into iconic toxic locations by Japan's popular cute pocket monsters. And this added some fuel to a moral panic already surrounding the release of the game. There are also a lot of more smaller slapstick-ish reports of players tripping over potholes and spraining ankles, walking into lampposts while being too focused on the phones, and even more serious reports of falling off a cliff or into a ditch, breaking bones. So the takeaway is that both Pokemon Shock and Pokemon Go are examples that illustrate unintended threats to physical safety of media consumers caused by seemingly cute, innocuous characters. And to be fair, there are also redeeming aspects that counterbalance these toxicities. For instance, Japanese authorities did collaborate with Pokemon Go to attract tourists to affected areas by the earthquake and tsunami by putting Pokemon in there for people to go get. And there are also studies highlighting the game's positive impact on individuals' mental health, such as hikikomori shut-ins. And there are also the redeeming example of Monju-kun, which is a grassroots anti-nuclear mascot representing an existing Japanese reactor, which was shut down due to a major leak. And Monju-kun has actively participated in anti-nuclear protests since the Fukushima disaster. And so to conclude, I want to summarize, so what strategies do these different instances of cutification of toxicity employ? And specifically, I want to point towards the issue of détournement. And détournement, as you know, is the action of recontextualizing images, signs, symbols to create new meanings. And here, I feel like détournement actually works a lot like the prison break tattoo from early in this talk, where this playful, silly outer appearance actually conceals this underlying corrosiveness. And indeed, toxic mascots, whether they are pro-nuclear characters or anime anthropomorphizations of diseases, show how cute poison appropriates already established trends, kawaii aesthetics, yurukiara, moe-gijinka, to spread potentially harmful ideas and misinformation in an almost kind of parasitic relationship. And also an important point that I want to make or call attention to is how this tournament often involves so tried and true techniques of scientific communication, such as using character features to convey information about toxic substances and diseases. Only rather than conveying accurate information, these techniques are hijacked for the purpose of spin doctoring or dark humor. And this is particularly evident in Tretian-chan, Öhnfeldt-chan, Corona-chan. In contrast, remembering that détournement literally translates from the French as diversion or rerouting, the Pokemon examples illustrate a more literal form of détournement, in which they are physically rerouting or disrupting the user experiences, and by doing so causing bodily harm. And to finalize, I would actually argue that the concept of cute poison is interesting to consider as a form of bioecological determinant, especially if we consider cuteness as a kind of an evolutionary technology designed to ensure the survival of babies and cubs and to facilitate pro-social relationships. Then maybe cute poison and cute aggression, maybe more broadly, can be seen as a form of cuteness that, and I'm going to borrow the expression from author German Sierra, who uses it in a completely different context, but so is this cuteness that has begun behaving non-technically. And I leave you with this thought. Thank you very much for the attention. That's it.
Thank you so much. That was a really fascinating talk. So much there, really interesting thinking around cuteness and toxicity. And it brought to mind, if you haven't seen it already, one of the articles in the original AWW-STRUCK symposium seminar that we ran, that's in the accompanying book about cuteness and eco-fascism and how the lumens have been appropriated for eco-fascist messages. So thank you. So we're going to move on now to our second speaker. Rebecca Öhnfeldt is researching a PhD as part of the Nuclear Natures project at Linköping University in Sweden. So thank you very much, Rebecca.
I was muted. Hi. Thank you. Do you see the entire presentation and no notes or stuff?
Yeah, that's fine. We can see.
Okay, because I haven't, it was such a long time ago, so I'm like, I wasn't sure of the technical matters. Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And yes, so I'm doing my PhD, like you said, as at Linköping University in Sweden, and it's part of a project that is called Nuclear Natures, and very short, it's like a project who looks at different phases of nuclear power production and how this kind of cycle has altered and affected different environments in many different ways. And when you look at the immediate vicinities of most nuclear power plants, there are these kind of areas or places that are continuously co-produced through industrial production conditions, but also through human and non-human everyday practices. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one of these, well, let's say practices today, which is a seal breeding project that was carried out at the Swedish nuclear power plant called Forsmark. And well, to the right here, you see a very cute seal pup indeed, named Sylvia, who was born in this project. And then here is an image of the nuclear power plant Forsmark. You can see the 3 reactors here in the background. And then here at the bottom, you have this enclosure where this breeding project took place. So no, it doesn't work. I couldn't change slide. I don't know why. Does it work now?
We're seeing you at the moment rather than the slides.
Okay, I couldn't change slide.
Ah. Sometimes you have to change it if you're sharing it directly. Sometimes you have to change it with the arrows at the bottom of the screen, if you've got those showing rather than with the keys. It's showing now, the second slide.
Oh, so you see it as the whole
slide. The whole, I can see the slide with the other slides down the left-hand side.
Oh.
I mean, if it's easier to run it like that, then
okay,
it's going to work best.
So we'll try. So yeah, just some like very short background here is what kind of if you think at nuclear power plants and facilities, maybe you're not thinking about animals, but there are actually a lot of animals there, and they're there for different reasons and in different relations to the humans there. And so you have these kind of encounters where humans are doing things such as bird watching and hunting, but also humans are doing these breeding exercises such as fish breeding, as you can see to the right here. And then animals sometimes kind of cause constraints, such as these jellyfish that you see at the bottom here. They're kind of clogging the intake of cooling water. But also then you have this kind of other practices where animals are taken rather formal and extensive care of by humans, like the seals that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And I just wanted to explain to you why I was using this term emotion management device, because that comes from some preliminary work that's been done by me and my supervisor, Professor Anna Storm, and it's based on this social contract of mono-industrial towns, where you have this kind of a contract that is based on this mutual dependency between the company and the workers. And this is also for towns with nuclear power plants, but as well as other industries. But to foster this contract, the company usually does a lot of things that's not directly connected to the production of the workplace, like supporting local sports clubs, education and infrastructure, etc. And so the tentative argument here is that animal caring programs, such as the SEAL program that I'm going to talk about, forms this kind of emotion management device, which can be key to the local trust in the nuclear industry, as well as maybe influencing the public opinion as well when it comes to nuclear power production more generally. And sometimes animals also have become these mascots, and that's what the image is showing here. This is the crane bird, which is the mascot for the atomic town close to Ignalina in Lithuania, which sits on this kind of sign that shows the current levels of radiation. So that was just some background to this term. And then we have this project that I just wanted to talk about. And so it took place at this nuclear power plant in Sweden called Forsmark, and between 1980 and 2006. And some background to this is that during this time before the project, environmental toxins such as DDT and PCB in the Baltic Sea it was disfiguring the seals and making the seals sterile. And these injuries were very common during the 70s and 80s, and it was actually called the Baltic Seal Disease Complex, and it had led to drastic decrease in the seal population. And there was a concern that the seals would die out. So there was this one researcher at the Swedish Museum of Natural History. He got an idea. He thought that, what if we bred seals with non-toxic food somewhere, and then we could plant healthy pups out into the Baltic Sea to show then that they need non-toxic food in order to reproduce, and also kind of shed a light on the problem with the environmental toxins. So he started looking for a place, and it turned out very difficult to find a place. But thanks to some personal connection, this very special spot was suggested, which was just next to this power plant. So they actually constructed this kind of big enclosure there, and it formed this kind of collaboration between the Swedish Museum of Natural History and the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency and WWF and Forsmark's Kraftgrupp, or Forsmark's Power Group, which is the company that's running the whole nuclear power plant. And so in 1980, the seals move in, and you see to the left here the researcher carrying a box with seals they come from Skansen in Stockholm, so 2 male and 2 female seals. And from 1985, they started getting pups, and normally 2 pups per year were then born and released. And at the same time, during this period, they started communicating about the seals. So this is the title Forsmarks Tidning is a local magazine that was distributed from the power plant to people living in the vicinity there. So they started writing about them, and you see this drawing here of a seal, which will come back again. And then you have an article with a seal there saying, "Our friends, the seals." And this is also a still image from a movie that was produced in 1987 by the power plant and was actually shown on national television about these seals. And so the handling of the seals, then, that was also a thing. The researchers had the primary responsibility, but they weren't always there. So the day-to-day care had to be managed by people that were locally engaged by the nuclear power plant. And one person, for instance, who became involved was actually a technician working at Forsmark with maintenance, but he became like official seal keeper for 10 years. And he collaborated closely with the researchers. And they also had this, later on, they freeze-marked, they named the pups and they freeze-marked them, and then they released them with satellite transmitters. You could follow them on a web page here, and here's an image showing the blue lines here shows trackers from one of the seals that was released in the south of Sweden. So you can see up here where Stockholm and then Forsmark is where the nuclear power plant is located. And the red lines, it's from another project in Poland doing the same thing, sort of. And then thanks to markings, they could spot this pup, Hilme, that was released in 2005, and then they could see him again 10 years later. And I actually managed to find through Internet Archive, I found some like outtakes from this old web page from 2003 and 2005. So, and I could actually find all these. He had a lot of like images and movies, and yeah, it's really a lot of cute things there. And then you could even order postcards. So you send a postcard to your friends, and then you could order like which seal pup you want. And here is a map where you can see the actual live tracking. And this is also a little text in the green here about the pup Sylvia that I showed you on the first slide. And then here to the right, finally, you have this kind of text about the seal parents, where they very much like describe their personalities and talking about the father who's really like curious about the pups, wanting to go to them when the mothers are not there. So it's really creating these stories around them. And then they also had this kind of, because this web page, it doesn't mention the nuclear power plant. And that is also because the researchers and WWF had said that we don't want this to be a PR thing for the nuclear power plant. But however, they wanted to communicate about these environmental toxins in the Baltic Sea. And that was also very much happening because the seals became more and more famous through a rather extensive media coverage. So here is like articles in WWF's kids magazine Panda about them, and there's a children's book about them that one of the researchers wrote, and they kind of fit very well these kind of texts and images, like what you would say like traditional charismatic animal narratives, where they're very much described with personalities and the way they are these kind of strong and relatable characters in a sense. And just some final examples here of how this, what I want to call care net, expanded. See this kind of net around the seals in their enclosure, and how it just kind of reeled in more and more people over the years, like from the researchers, but then the local community, and then people visiting the power plant, and even on a national level, like I said, through media coverage. So you have these examples here that I want to show you from. To the left here, Kuriren is a staff magazine at the power plant, and they started using this seal head that I've circled here in red as a logo in 1988. And then this kind of notice, a small thing from this, where they write in Swedish, you can go and buy seal sweaters. So you could go to the staff clothing shop and buy seal sweaters. They kind of became this mascot to the people working at the power plant, and which was also basically everyone living there, or either you worked there or you know someone who worked there. So it's kind of a local thing. And you can also see, if you recognize the seal here, that from the other image from the magazine, that is actually the sweater worn by a political party leader called Bengt Westerberg. He was doing a PR tour in 1988, and here's an image from that tour when he's feeding the seals, and he's talking about like how his party wants to handle environmental toxins in the Baltic Sea. So they were very much used for PR purposes in that sense. And it's also kind of both implicit and explicit message being conveyed that they were bred next to a very clean and contained nuclear power plant in order to protect them from environmental toxins in the sea. And then also other famous people fed them, this is the crown princess feeding them to the left here. And then finally, on a more national level, you have this article about the father Nils, who is they finally found a home for him when they're closing down. And this old little thing up to the right here is like the first 2 pups when they were born. That was announced in Sweden's biggest newspaper, Dagens Nyheter, with this notice here. And on the corner here, you see one of the pups being released in the south of Sweden. You can see like journalists and researchers and people just lining up there on the beach, like kind of looking at this little pup crawling towards freedom. So just to sum up, based on kind of this case with the Forsmark seals, one can notice how this care program was very much connected to then topical debates on general environmental issues, and also kind of could also work as a way to portray the nuclear industry, or this power plant at least, as a very good and responsible societal actors. And it was also this kind of shift taking place over time, because the seals were, from the beginning, they were saved because they were valued, but then they were almost like valued even more because they were being saved. So because I mean, there weren't that many pups being born in the project over like 25 years. So, but this kind of fed into the relational strategy of the nuclear power plant. And like I said, they always have this kind of, they emphasize the charismatic animals, like they need us, they need our help. So in conclusion then, one could maybe see how this care program became this emotion management device, like not only in the local community, but also maybe positively influencing the public image of the nuclear industry, like nationally in Sweden, so on a bigger scale as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. It's really interesting to hear like a sort of a longer case study as well, because you can really see all the kind of the complexities at work there. There's so many different layers to what you were talking about. So I hope we'll have some really good questions that can kind of focus on some of those as well later. Okay. Right, so we have now our final speaker of this session, Jasmine Lu. Jasmine is a human-computer interaction researcher and PhD student at U Chicago, who will be talking about integrating living organisms in devices to implement care-based interactions. So thank you very much, Jasmine.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. Just want to make sure that you can see my screen and you can see this little device.
I can, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So hi again, I'm Jasmine Lu. I'm a PhD student in computer science and I study human-computer interaction. Today I'll be talking about this project I did where we integrated a living organism in devices to explore implementing care-based interactions. And this work was done in collaboration with Pedro Lopez, my advisor at the University of Chicago. To kind of preface this talk, I'm really excited to talk about this work today because cuteness is definitely a big theme of this work, but I'm not super well engaged with literature around cuteness, so I really welcome all of y'all's thoughts and impressions. In this work, we look at care specifically, but I think the themes of cuteness and care are like pretty tightly intertwined. Okay, so to get started, in this work, we explore how embedding a living organism as a functional component of a device kind of changes the user-device relationship. We explore this by creating the smartwatch you see here, that clearly it's not really a normal smartwatch. Our design incorporates the act of caring for it in the interaction design. The organism here acts as a living wire, and you can see it kind of growing across here in a second. Once grown across, the organism forms an electrical wire that enables a heart rate sensor. And when it's connected back into the device, it completes the circuit, powering the sensor and enabling the user to see their heart rate on the device. However, this living wire only works when the organism is healthy. And in our concept, the user needs to actively care for this living wire in order for the device to work. And here you can see the user providing water droplets as a form of caring for the organism. So why would we build a kind of weird device like this that requires some friction by requiring care? Well, considering how typically in our field of human-computer interaction design, we design all these innovative interactive devices that are increasingly necessary and integrated throughout all our lives. But we kind of wondered how, despite the large role that all these devices play in our life, are we really actually good caretakers of our devices? I would argue for the most part, we're not the best caretakers of our devices. Once a device's utility runs out or a newer model gets released, for example, most of our devices become electronic waste in landfills without much of a second thought. In fact, e-waste is the largest growing waste stream in the entire world. So our work is motivated by exploring how we can reimagine this user-device relationship by engineering our devices differently, kind of troubling the existing paradigm of user-device relationships that generate electronic waste. This kind of concept has been explored across various human-computer interaction projects. Researchers have tried to imagine alternative relationships by creating devices that encourage non-normative engagements and moments of reflection through their use. And researchers have also specifically looked at how to embed care into our interactions with these devices through a variety of methods. To focus on one in particular, oftentimes these designs involve forms of virtual care, where users care for digital entities like pets or plants. A really great example of this that I'm sure many of you are familiar with is Tamagotchis, which is a toy that asks users to care for a virtual pet. Interactions based on virtual care typically work by simulating liveliness to keep a user engaged. However, there tends to be a limit to the attachment form between user and virtual companion. One of the reasons for this is like the Tamagotchi device. It's made of inert materials like metals and plastics. So after the novelty of the interaction wears off, it can be hard to feel connection to such a device. And for a lot of young kids, even if they like really loved and cared for these toys, I know I did, they lost connection at one point and they either threw them out or like put them in the back of their closets. So I think this makes living media interfaces, which is kind of an emerging area of research, a really interesting idea to explore. In some of these projects that I'm showing here, researchers have looked at what happens when we don't only use inert materials, but also work with responsive and living organisms. I'm specifically interested in how these past approaches could be used to explore the use of living material to design for caring interactions. We present this concept of implementing physical care in interactive devices through the integration of the living organism. To explain this concept, we use this example of the smartwatch that I showed earlier with the slime mold integrated. But we kind of think that this concept can be realized across various device, organism, and user configurations, but our design smartwatch kind of presents a nice example to explore this idea. And in creating this design, we created 3 key principles needed for this overall concept to work. So principle 1, the interactive device features a living organism. Our concept relies on the very unique qualities evoked from interacting with a living organism. Like plastics and metals are not super responsive like living organisms, making it difficult to feel kinship with the devices. But with plants, fungi, bacteria, animals, slime mold, or even humans, we all need the right nutrition or environmental conditions to thrive, and it's something that kind of connects us all. And working with living organisms also has quite literally these kind of more life or death stakes because of these needs. So these are really unique material qualities that interaction designers can incorporate when partnering with a living organism and highlighting them in a device. Principle 2, the user is responsible for delivering care. So our concept puts the user in charge of the act of care. We do this to kind of avoid this sort of virtual care relationship created when delivering care is a frictionless automated experience, like via push of a button, kind of common for a lot of virtual care scenarios. In requiring the user to perform care, the user also becomes more of an active and essential partner in this relationship between user, device, and living organism. And last, principle 3, the organism participates in the functionality of the device. So to further encourage care, the organism must contribute some aspect of the interactive device's functionality, and this contribution should be as explicit as possible. So if the user immediately recognizes the impact of the organism's health, they can understand the impact of the care that they deliver, offering more potential to deepen this user-device relationship. So we have these 3 principles to kind of enable the formation of this caring interactions network where all 3 entities can benefit from the provided care. Now I'll dive a little bit deeper into how we implemented our concept in the watch. So the living organism we partnered with is Physarum polycephalum, also known as slime mold. And slime mold has a lot of unique features that make it especially great for designing caring interactions with. For one, it's an organism found in many wet foresty areas, but it's also commonly found in many middle school or high school lab project kits. It's biosafety level 1, which basically means that it presents little to no danger when handling it. It's not like a vector for pathogens or diseases. As you can see, slime mold can grow expansively and in many different environments. And for our purposes, we put slime mold in a small acrylic enclosure designed to encourage this nice formation of a living wire. This is a time lapse of it growing across this acrylic enclosure towards the soaked oats in the second well. And as you can see, eventually without enough moisture, the slime mold dries out, entering a dormant state. And slime mold can exist in this dormant, dried state for years, actually, waiting to be resuscitated again when environmental conditions become more favorable. So that can include like with the introduction of food and water. And we use these unique characteristics of slime mold in our interaction design. So back in our video, I showed how when the slime mold is fully grown across and healthy, and connected to the smartwatch, it acts as a living wire, conducting electricity to power the heart rate sensor. However, if the user doesn't care for the device and neglects it, over time, the organism will dry without any water to sustain it. And without these necessary conditions to thrive, the slime mold will enter that dormant state. And when it does so, the living wire is no longer conductive or connected, disabling the heart rate sensor. However, the user can then revive the organism again by providing care through like water droplets or oats, allowing the slime mold to grow that wire again. So we leverage these features of the slime mold's life cycle to design interactions that depend on the user's care and subsequently the slime mold's health. This works because in the watch, the organism is directly participating in the device's functionality. You can see that little yellow squiggly line that indicates the living wire or the slime mold, and it's a part of the overall circuit of the device. As part of this project, we also conducted a lot of tests as a technical evaluation of the slime mold living wire to kind of generally get a sense of the feasibility of this approach. So we explored growing our slime mold with different types of nutrition and on different substrates, testing the influence of direct light on slime mold growth, and taking time lapses of the slime mold's growth to determine the average speed of growth. And finally, measuring the average resistance of the Physarum wire over time, which would be important for implementation in an electronic circuit. Obviously, there are many limitations of using a living wire, and we're not suggesting that it should compete with the reliability of like your standard copper traced or electronic wire. These tests were done to get better insight into practically how a slime mold wire could be used. But overall in this project, we were much more interested in the properties of working with it as a living material. So we really wanted to kind of test our approach and explore how this device might change the user-device relationship. So we actually gave out the slime mold watch and saw what folks thought. And we ran this kind of exploratory study where participants took the device home and wore the watch for 9 to 14 days of their daily lives. Our study consisted of 2 phases. One, a caring phase, where participants were instructed to care for the ficerum until it grew a wire, and they were able to experience a healthy ficerum and heart rate enabled device. Then we instructed participants to stop caring for the ficerum until it dried and the heart rate sensor was no longer enabled. We had a lot of really, really interesting responses from our participants throughout the study. I've selected a few quotes to read to give you an idea of what it was like for participants, but if you're interested in reading more, I would encourage you to look at the paper. I'm also including photos from our participants with each of these quotes to that are actually from participants while they were doing the study. Okay, but first, during the caring phase, here a participant 5 got sick during her study, but continued to actively take care of her slime mold during her sickness. And in her interview, she explains how the care she gave to the slime mold was the same as the care her partner and her were giving to herself, specifically in feeding herself oats and giving herself lots of water. During the neglect phase, where participants had to not provide care and wait for the ficerum to dry out, participant 4 explained how during the growing phase, she checked up on the watch more, but after having to not care for it, she felt like she treated the watch more like an object. Next, when comparing her experiences with a regular smartwatch, participant 1 explained how the ficerum watch didn't really feel like a one-way relationship as she was taking care of it, and the watch was giving her heart rate as payback, which felt more like a bi-directional relationship. And last quote, in comparing the care that she gave to her other electronic devices compared to the ficerum watch, participant 2 explained how she felt more immediately connected to her ficerum watch because of the living component, feeling connected even on the first day of interaction, whereas with her other devices, she felt like it would take years to build that relationship. So based on the study, we kind of collected some main conclusions based on our interviews with our participants. These 3 main themes were that we found that our participants developed a sense of responsibility for the watch, an affinity to the organism, and a reciprocal relationship. And they experienced effective responses to the device's state, such as like depending on the liveliness of the ficerum. Now, this is kind of a tangent, and not related to our initial study, but I wanted to include it because I thought it was fun and interesting and of relevance to this symposium theme. A few months ago, someone tweeted about our project and it went viral on Twitter. I just thought the discussion around it was very cute. If I were to kind of sum it up, there are these screenshots of some tweets, but people really liked the idea of a slime mold friend and loved the idea that people were forming caring connections to the devices. And folks mentioned like wanting to see other variations of this, but I thought it was really interesting how a lot of the discussion focused on this aspect of like cuteness and like wanting to see cuteness across other technologies because of like how it inspired care. But to conclude, as the number of consumer devices grows very exponentially, the toll on the environment becomes a lot more pronounced. And typically, we're only engaging as users of our electronic devices, a relationship that only works one way. So we wanted to trouble this with our project, and we see our approach as a method to encourage users to reckon with this aspect of their device use and to explore the future possibilities where designs encourage more than just the user device relationship built on extractive use, but also interactions where users can take on this caretaking role. To speak more generally, this care that we extend to our devices is very different from the care we extend to other non-human counterparts like plants or pets. And I think it's really interesting to imagine how the future of interactive devices could also provide enriching experiences that center care for the other. And we hope that this work can kind of inspire and push others to imagine these care-based futures further. That's all. Thanks so much for listening, and would love to hear your impressions or thoughts about the work.